finding things on walks. Found this backpack. It had 2 chargers in it. This one is for an iPhone, so I can use it. This one is, I don't know what that's nothing I can use, I don't think. And then some deodorant. So probably belonged to a homeless person, I don't know. Hold on a second. Well, the deodorant smells good, but I don't use deodorant, and it's already been used, so I don't need no HPV, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna throw this in the laundry, in my washing machine, put some more darks in there, fill her up. Got a brand new backpack. There you go. Hello, YouTube. Prepper Princess. I'm the author of Living on Almost Nothing. If you're interested in purchasing my book, I will go ahead and leave a link down in the description box below. Today is going to be, I like these things. One thing you don't know about my personality is whether it's against me or for me, I love gotcha moments. Gotcha. I love it. Even if it's like somebody got me, like proved me wrong in a big way or something like that. I love the gotcha moments. Today's video is going to be about, I'll go ahead and post it here or on the screen. Now, as I'm making this video, I'm fixing my rake because a new rake costs about $20 and fixing a rake costs exactly 44 cents. So I had to go and get a new nut and bolt over at good old Ace Hardware. So you'll have to excuse me. So this post is something that circulates all over the internet these days. And it's about, in 1950, you could afford a house, a car, send your kids to college. And, you know, I don't know why people post these to, it seems like somebody's trying to divide the people, I guess. I don't understand why anybody would post something like that to make yourself feel bad about the current situation. Doesn't make much sense to me. But, and there's one specific YouTuber, I don't know his name, but he goes out there and he you know, points out all these things about the costs of things and inflation and how our dollar is less valuable. And I'm gonna disagree with him on a couple of things. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. If I can find his YouTube channel, I'll go ahead and leave a link down below. But so let's talk about apples to apples, you know, oranges to oranges. In 1950, okay, for starters, the average house was 1,000 square feet, 2 or 3 bedrooms, maybe, 1 bathroom to raise a family of 4 or 5. 1,000 square feet, no air conditioning, no heating. You would be lucky if you had that. And the photo that I'm showing you is not an average middle-class family. That is an obvious upper-class family, okay? In 1950, the average house did not have a garage because only 60% of people owned a car. And if they owned a car, it was 1 car per household. Only 60% of households owned a car. And that car had no safety features, no radio, and got about 12 miles to the gallon. So there was a lot less demand. It's a big culture issue. There was a lot less demand for gasoline back then because so few people owned a car. And if they did own a car, cars were not used for commuting back then, believe it or not, because most people lived where they worked. And over time, it's turned into a thing used for commuting, but it wasn't back then. Back then, it was more for recreation. And again, no safety features, no radio, 12.8 miles per gallon. Not a lot of choices either. So there was no Hyundai or Nissan or Mazda. It was basically just, you want a Ford? Okay, we'll give you a Ford. Have fun. That's about all that there was. And the houses, so you have to remember, you know, talking about the houses back then. The houses back then, you know, 1,000 square feet, 2 or 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, no heating, no air conditioning. Only, I believe it was about 2/3 of people owned a phone, a telephone of any kind, and it was typically rented by the telephone company. You didn't even own the phone. So you're looking at and only 9% of people in 1950 owned a television. And if you did own a television, it was black and white, and it only got about 2 channels. Not a whole lot of programming options either. So if you think about it that way, you know, having a TV, maybe it was kind of a luxury, but it was definitely at that time not a necessary luxury. Like, it, you know, if you come home and you only have 2 channels, everything's in black and white, and it's basically just news, you know, why even have one? So no TV, no internet, no gaming consoles, no telephone, no cell phone, no washer or dryer, because those were still new technologies. A lot of people didn't even have refrigerators. They had ice boxes. So you're looking at walking into a house that basically has none of the stuff that we have now, and it's much, much smaller. So that is a big culture thing. Also, the culture back then was not buy now, pay later. You had to pay cash for everything. So you had to have a 20% down payment that you probably saved by living at home with your mom or dad. And it was not weird to live with your parents until you married at the age of 28, 29, 30. So you're working from the age of, and back then it wasn't 18, it was more like 15. You're working from 15 to 28, saving your money for that big down payment for a little tiny house and a car. So there was no credit back then except for a mortgage. So if you're gonna get a car, most people, if only 60% of people of households had a car, which was a luxury. If you had a car, you paid for it in cash. So most people had a used car. And if you're thinking the year 1950, you know, 12.8 miles per gallon, but if you're buying a used car, you're looking at like a 1940 car, which is even less miles per gallon and less stuff in the car. And then you can send your kids to college. Okay. Now that's completely false, because in 1950, only 3.8% of women went to college and only 41% of men graduated high school. So that's just completely out the window. It's just totally not true. And if you did go to college, you paid as you went, because again, there weren't student loans back then. You paid as you went, or you had to have a sponsor, is what they called it. So that's out the window. Now, the dynamics, first of all, frugality in 1950 was considered a virtue. People weren't made fun of like they do today. It was virtuous. It was noble. It meant you had integrity if you had a frugal lifestyle. And back then, women and men worked as teams. Like, you had to be an in-tune team. Typically, the man would go out and earn the bread, and the car would typically stay at home, because again, you lived where you worked, so the man would likely walk to work, and the woman was completely in charge of the household. Now you have to remember, back then, there's no soap operas. You might have a radio. You know, radios were popular back then, and they had all these great, like what we would consider podcasts today. They had them back then, but they were like fiction stories of War of the Worlds and all these crazy things, going to the moon and all this stuff. So the woman would be able to listen to the radio while she worked at home. But remember, no dishwasher. Okay, so she was washing dishes by hand. There was no prepackaged food, so she's cooking food from scratch. There are no, very rarely, washers and dryers. You might have an old, you know what the washers looked like back then, with maybe a wringer to wring out the water. But for the most part, women were doing laundry by hand, hanging it to dry, because no washers and dryers. Had a big garden, because even with our crazy inflated food prices today, remember, there's no prepackaged food back then, but with our crazy food prices today, it was still about 3 times the percentage of the budget. So imagine right now steak is $5 a pound. Well, the equivalent back then would be $15 a pound. So a lot more money was going into the food budget at home, which is why women were kind of like, they had to have a victory garden, is because the vegetables and the fruits and stuff like that were so expensive. There were no imports of bananas and pineapples back then. And if you did get them, it was super rare, a super big treat, big deal. So the standards of what we're comparing now I think that people like, they think of, oh, I make $100,000 a year. Back then, buying a house for $3,000 was so easy. Well, you got to remember, the average wage back then was $1.40 an hour. So when you think about it, as much as people struggle today, and I do feel for those people that struggle today, it was just as bad back then, and they had even less to work with. You know, how would you like to come home from an 8-hour shift to a home that is not air conditioned or heated, and you have to cook if you want like a slice of bread and some butter, you have to go and bake your own bread. You're not exactly going to have pizza, because, you know, pizza was not a prepackaged thing. And when you went to dine out, even fast food, well, fast food back then was better, but fast food or dining out, sitting where you're dining at a table with your family, was a very special occasion. We're talking anniversary and birthday only. That's it. And don't forget, in these houses, you ever wonder why a house that was built in the early 1900s has such small closets? Because people didn't own any clothing. I mean, they usually had anywhere about 4 outfits, 1 pajama set, and 1 pair of shoes. 2 if you were wealthy. And this, I only speak from experience because of my grandma. My grandma came from a upper middle class family, and she only had 1 pair of shoes. And most of the clothes are made by the mom. So, you know, you're not going to go to the Nike store and get an awesome pair of shoes. You're going to go down to your local shoe store, and you'll have 5 options to choose from, and you get to pick one of those. So your outfits were typically school clothes, church clothes, after school clothes, and extra set. And then you had one set of pajamas, and then 1 pair of shoes, and underwear, of course. So when you're comparing the things, the price of things today, and how inflation hasn't kept up and our wages haven't kept up, well, our quality of life has gone up so high that we can't, the things that they shopped for in 1950 are basically barely even available, but they do still exist. And I have done it twice on this channel. I moved to Arizona. I paid $67,000 for a 2-bed, 2-bath house. I sold it recently. And then this house in California, where the average home price is nearing $900,000, I got my house for $198,000. It is a 1915 Sears kit home with extensions. It has an extra bedroom, and the back laundry room was built on at some point. It's 1,000 square feet. It was a fixer-upper, no central heat or air. Well, it came with a washer and dryer, but and at one point it had a water closet and not even a bathroom. And at one point it had a wood-burning stove for heat, no air conditioning. So you can imagine. I mean, you can imagine. So those deals are still out there if you're willing to live not in the big city metro area, all that stuff. So the houses are still available. Old cars are still dirt cheap that you can pay in cash. But what I think all of this comes out to, what is the root cause? The root cause of not being able to afford anything is not just lifestyle creep and luxury creep, where our luxuries are now considered necessities. But it is also the root cause of people being so poor in today's society is debt. I hate to sound like Dave Ramsey, because I love Dave Ramsey. He's great, but he's right about 99% of stuff. And the root cause is debt. So if you, even in today's age, today, 2025, 2026 and beyond, if you work from the age of 16 to 28 and you do nothing but live at home and save all of your money, buying a average house that doesn't have heating, basically a fixer-upper, and not in a metro area, is easily doable in today's wages. If you don't go to college like most people in 1950, you don't have that $100,000 debt. That doesn't even exist. If you buy a 10-year-old used car, instead of $70,000, you're spending $7,000 in cash, because debt is what makes it feel impossible. It's what makes life feel impossible. And remember, thrift was a virtue. So when it comes to cooking your food, when you dine out, just dine out on birthdays and anniversaries. If you want to live like they did in 1950 and have life be totally easy, it's still doable. It's completely possible in today's age. You can do it. If you want that, you can do it. And I guess I kind of live like they did in 1950, but I have internet and TV and a computer and a phone, a cell phone. But take all that stuff out, what do your bills really, and take out the debt, what, if you've put down 20% on a home, that is 1/4 the price of the average home. What bills do you really have? Something to think about. And if you only have 4 sets of clothes and 2 pairs of shoes, how much did you save on not spending all those clothes? I have a lot more than that. I definitely have a lot more than that. And fixing instead of replacing. How much do you save on that? How much do you save by fixing instead of replacing? It's a lot. It's a lot. All right, folks. I enjoy these videos. I love these gotchas because the whole, in 1950 on one income, you could have a house, a car, and send your kids to college, and life was so much easy. So life was so much easier. Yeah, okay. Get a small house in a suburb with no garage, 1,000 square feet, 2 or 3 bedrooms, no heating, no air, no washer, no dryer, no internet, no phone, no television. Get yourself a radio. You've got it. A car. Yeah, you could afford a car with no safety features that gets 12 miles per gallon. I'm pretty sure you could afford one today. Except they don't make them that only get 12 gallons per 12 miles per gallon per today. Something like 35 for an average sedan in today's. And it was a luxury. Most people didn't even need cars back then because they lived where they worked. So live where you work. Don't get a car. Let's see how expensive your life really is when you chop it down and compare apples to apples. Do what you can with what you've got. Prepper Princess out. So Rocky, do you want to tell the audience why you've decided to just stand there and not continue to go on our walk? Do you want to let them know? No? Okay, how about you? Well, you're in charge because you're the senior. So whatever we're going to do, I guess it's up to you. I mean, I'm just holding this because you won't walk without it. You're the one who refused to walk without a leash. So where do you want to go, sir? Do you want to go this way? You want to go this way? This way? No, you just want to stand there? Okay, well, yeah, let's just chill out then. Just hang out in the shade and just stand there. Sounds fun. It's a good time. Yeah, well, I would like to keep walking too, but somebody is against it. Yeah. Yeah. So, tell me, where do you want to go? You want to go that way? Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go that way. All right.